everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to the Best of Publishers. Today we're talking about Hasbro. Now, Hasbro is the biggest board game company in the world. They're the biggest toy company in the world. And over the years, they bought several competitors. They bought Parker Brothers, they bought Milton Bradley, they bought Avalon Hill. I've done a previous list about Avalon Hill, the Hasbro Avalon Hill games, so I'm not going to be including any of those. These are the ones that are under just the main Hasbro label. Now, Hasbro has done some pretty bad games, and that's kind of generous. They've done actually dozens and hundreds of them probably. However, they've also done some fantastic games, and in fact, when I was putting this list together, there's actually some really good games that I left off the list, like Looping Louie and Pie Face. Okay, those maybe are silly games, but Hasbro has made some really good games. Here are my 10 favorite. Number 10 is Sorry Sliders. Now, Sorry is a game that's not that good, although it can be modified to be made better. But Sorry Sliders use the Sorry pawn pieces that people know, put little ball bearings in the bottom, and you slid them across, kind of like shuffleboard, trying to aim for a hole in the middle. They also made a version based on the movie Cars from Pixar, which was kind of a race using the same thing. I've not played that one, but it looks good. But Sorry Sliders is a silly game. I just saw a comment on my review of it said, this is for kids. Sure, it's for kids, but it's also for adults. It's a great game of dexterity. Number 9 is Clue, the DVD game. Now, Clue, the game is okay. My biggest problem with Clue is that you roll a die and that's how far you move. That seems kind of problematic. But Clue, the DVD game, took that out of it. It added a DVD, which is technology, which some people don't want in their games, but different random events might happen. You could go from one secret room to another. You would just go from one room to another, too. There wasn't rolling of dice. And there were different cases. There was 10 different cases, if I remember correctly, plus a way to make it a randomized set of cases. And you were finding out 4 different things rather than just 3. You also needed to know what time the robbery, I believe it turned into a robbery rather than a murder. But a very good, solid package put together by Rob Daviau, actually, which is probably the biggest shining star in Hasbro's history. Number 8 just came out last year, and that is Risk Europe. Now, Risk Europe is not really like Risk much at all, other than that there's attacking and you're rolling dice. There's a little bit of Risk combat, but there's card play, and your card play, when each turn you play a card until you pick all your cards back up, determines what actions you can take. There are different types of units that you can have. You're going to be trying to control different areas, which will give you resources. It's basically like someone took Risk and said, can we make a better game? And the answer is yes, they can. Risk Europe. Number 7 for me is Star Wars Epic Duels. You may not have heard of this one. In fact, it's extremely expensive to get these days, which is unfortunate because it was a really fun board game in which you would pick one of the characters from episodes 1 through 6, and they had a minion or 2 with them, and you would fight someone else. So you might take the Emperor and 2 Royal Guards, or you might take Obi-Wan and 2 Clone Troopers, or you might have Darth Vader and 2 Stormtroopers, or you might have Han and Chewie together. And you would have these people, and they each had a little deck of cards, and these cards would tell you how far they would move when you played a card, or they could heal or attack, and you would attack your opponent, get to roll dice and things. It was silly popcorn type fun, but it was entertaining, and you could have these fun little matchups. They made a Transformers follow-up that was actually compatible, but wasn't as good, so I'm going to give the nod to Star Wars Epic Duels. Number 6 is eBay, the electronic talking game. Now, eBay is part of our society today. You want to auction something? Put it on eBay. Well, eBay, the electronic talking game, had an auction game where different things would show up and you would bid on them in real time. The game is in real time, and so you have a card and you place it in a slot, and randomly at different times an auction would end, and whoever's card was on the top wins that auction, but they lose that card. So the game was fair, and then you get the item, which hopefully was valuable. Sometimes it was half the value, sometimes it was double the value. You're trying to collect sets. It was a really good game, and it was $5 for the longest time. Now it's hard to find. Number 5 is Risk Star Wars. This came out 2 years ago in the build-up to Star Wars Episode 7. And again, this one is nothing like Risk. In fact, this one's closer to Star Wars Queen's Gambit, which was produced by the Avalon Hill branch of Hasbro. This game, in which you are taking place in the Return of the Jedi, the end of the movie there, and so part of it, you have some troopers who are trying to get in and deactivate the shields. You have Luke fighting Darth Vader, and then in the middle, you have the rebels trying to destroy the Death Star. Lots of plastic miniatures, lots of fun. It's very cheap and inexpensive, actually. a really good game, Star Wars Risk. Number 4 is a game many people may not have heard of, but when it came out, it was being played everywhere, and that's Battle Ball. Now, there are a lot of fighting sports games these days. There's a lot of them. Battle Ball is the simplest of the lot, but it was really easy. Each team had different units. The units had a colored base that would show you what die they would use. And so that's how far they could move when you rolled that die. But that also was a die they used for fighting, and lower numbers were better in fighting. And so the guy who only used a 6-sided die to move wasn't very fast, but man, the chance of him rolling a low number was strong. There was even a football-shaped die, and you would throw the ball back and forth, tackle each other, and try to get to one end zone. Man, I wanted more expansions for this, but even as a base game, it was great fun. Battle Ball. Number 3 is Monopoly Tropical Tycoon. Now wait, hear me out here. I know a lot of people watching this video don't like Monopoly, and I certainly understand the reasons. I'm not a fan of Monopoly myself. But Monopoly Tropical Tycoon is the best version of Monopoly. Not only did it implement a DVD which had random events happening, but it changed almost every other feature of the game. Each person has a special ability that only they have. The game ends after a certain time thing, not when one person or multiple people are eliminated, or if someone is eliminated, that ends the game. The game is going for points, not money. There are various buildings you can build, not just houses and hotels, but you can build casinos and waterfronts and restaurants. There's so many cool, different, neat, unique options. This takes Monopoly, turns it on its head. It's a really good game. Number 2 is Risk Legacy. Hey, this is the game that started it all. It took the game of Risk and changed it permanently. I mean, as in, you got your copy, you would write on it. There were packages that you would open up and new things would come out. This was a mind-blowing thing that has now been copied and used in Pandemic Legacy and other, it's like a genre now of legacy games. Risk Legacy was the first. It still is at its heart and core a game of Risk, but it's fast. There's a lot of different things that are going to happen, and my copy of Risk Legacy is completely different than most people's copy. And my favorite game from Hasbro, and this is by like a mile, and that's HeroScape. HeroScape is the game I own more of than any other game in my collection. This game in which you had everything attacking everything. You would have colonial soldiers fighting Vikings, fighting weird orc monsters, fighting people from D&D, fighting futuristic robots, fighting a troll. There were just so many cool things in it. They released a ton of expansions, and it's out of print. And they kind of came back with it. The Wizards of the Coast section with the Magic the Gathering set, not quite the same. HeroScape reigned supreme. The interlocking terrain, it was just an amazing thing to play with, and it was a toy, but at the same time, one of my favorite games of all time. Folks, those are my favorite 10 games from Hasbro. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. They're a huge company, but they've made several great games. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel. You've been watching Best of Publishers, Hasbro.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.